And when we come to you, we'll have you introduce yourselves. So thanks for joining us. And Carol, I'm hoping that you'll get your audio working because we're beginning. Okay, great, thanks. So Julie, would you like to join us at the table?
Sure. Right here, fine?
Yes.
Okay.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Have we had you in the committee room in the past 12 months?
No, the last time I was here was pre-COVID. So since then, it's all been online. So I'm happy to finally be here.
So
In
most
person.
of the spaces around the table are new.
They are.
So why don't we introduce ourselves? And then we'll jump right in. I'm David Durfee. I'm the chair of the committee, and I am from Shaftesbury, represent Sunderland and Glastonbury as well.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Rodney Graham, represent Orange 3, which is Jamestown and Chelsea.
Thank you. I do know you. We've talked on the phone a few times. Yes, thank you.
Julie Jedlipsky, I represent the Lamoille 1 District, Stowe.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Charles Wilson, Caledonia 3, which is Lindenville, Sheffield, Wheelock, Sutton, and Newark.
Thank you.
David Templeman, Brownington, Barton, and Westmore.
Thank you very much.
Josie Levitt, representing Grand Isle Chittenden, which is all of Grand Isle County and a little bit of West Milton.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Rice, represent the Bennington Rutland District, Danby, Dorset, Mangrove, Mount Tabor, and Peru.
That's a lot. Okay.
John O'Brien, I represent Windsor Orange 1, which is Royalton and Tunbridge.
Thank you, and I do remember you as well.
Hi, I'm Esme Cole, and I'm from Hartford, which is 136.
Thank you.
There's Supernat, Windsor 4, Barnard, Pomfret, and Bridgewater.
Thank you very much. I think I remember you as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Great. Well, I know Sonia is running the Zoom over there, and we have Henry Pearl, who's not with us today, other member of the committee. Do you have anything that you want to put up on the screen for us to look at, or is it just going to be a conversation?
Today is going to be a conversation. A lot of it's going to be probably, well, not really repetitive of what Mike O'Grady spoke to you all about yesterday, but it was kind of like what I was going to go into the conversation today. And it's mainly just to kind of like add some context to some of our establishments that we already have under USDA, state, and now our cooperative interstate shipment program. So that's it. It's just will be a conversation.
Okay. Good. So we're live now, and if you want to introduce yourself for the record, and then you can just jump right in, and I'm sure there'll be questions, and if anybody wants to ask a question, they'll check with me. And is that okay if we interrupt as you go, or?
You can interrupt anytime you'd like, yes. And for the record, my name is Julie Bovier. I am the program section chief over at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets Consumer Protection Division. So thank you.
Great. Well, let's hear what you have to say.
So basically, and I thought maybe we would hear from others first, but that's okay. So in our program, and what you heard yesterday is we have a cooperative agreement with USDA. So that means that we have to hold mandatory federal inspection, the Poultry Products Inspection Act. We have to uphold those in order to keep this program. Our meat inspection program for the state, I think, is very important. We give a lot of education. We provide services for people to help them understand the regulations that go forth with what USDA requires. All of our federal inspectors are mandatory trained through USDA, along with the training that they have through our agency. So one of the contexts I wanted to say was that our inspectors do go into the federal establishments. They provide that inspection. Slaughterhouses, poultry plants, processing facilities, they're out there providing that inspection.
Julie, if I can.
Yes.
So we're talking about state employees who are inspectors.
Yes.
That would go into a state inspected plant or a federally
That's correct, and that's part of our cross-utilization that we have with USDA. So anytime that we go into a federal establishment, we're reimbursed 100% from USDA. Now we have this cooperative interstate shipment program. USDA will refund us 60% of the time that we are at that establishment, and that also includes travel times to and from the establishments.
Federal inspectors also do spot inspections of
So,
facilities?
yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but a lot of times our federal establishments are in one establishment that may process slaughter processing 5 days a week, so they need a constant inspector at those establishments. Those are more the larger establishments, if I can say that here in Vermont. Most of our establishments are very small. So, and we don't fully have, with the amount of establishments we have, USDA, state cooperative and state shipment program, we don't have enough federal inspectors for those establishments. So they ask us to take over and to go in and to uphold those the mandatory inspections that we have to do. Because when you think about any time there is an establishment that does have slaughter, we have to be there. We have to see animals, poultry before slaughter. We have to look at them after slaughter. We have to make sure they're wholesome, healthy for human consumption. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So going forward, we're looking at this bill, and the good thing about this bill is that USDA does have the requirements that uphold this bill. So it's great because we are not going to see our program in any kind of, they won't look at us like we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, okay, because we won't be in jeopardy. And that's a key thing, because if we do anything that is not part of the USDA, part of that Federal Meat Inspection Act, part of the Poultry Products Inspection Act, they will look at our program and they will question our program. And they may say, well, no, you're not following our program, so no, we are going to take over. So they would come into Vermont and they would take over all the establishments. We would lose this small program. And then, of course, we would lose our cooperative interstate shipment program as well, which is, by the way, doing a great success with our small state facilities, where we've got 4 establishments under that CIS plan now, and we've got 2 coming on board very shortly.
Are those numbers you just mentioned, is that specific to poultry or all slaughter?
All slaughter and all processing. We have a lot of establishments that just process, they don't do any slaughter at all. So, and then we have the slaughter establishments that actually will ship off product to these smaller establishments so they can use that. So it still stays within the local realm of Vermont. And so that works very well. So, and if I can just get back to inspection, with our meat inspection program, our number one, we feel that all establishments should come under a form of inspection. We feel that that is the best way to promote Vermont product, to have a food safety HACCP plan, which is a hazard analysis critical control plan, a good sanitation program, and have an inspector on site that overlooks these written programs that the facilities have to have. But we also feel that there are, the exemptions work, and we want to have farmers have the ability to be able to have, to be able to sell product under the correct way. So going forward with this, we have some language that we want to look at. We want to talk amongst ourselves and amongst our agency before we actually make a stance on this. So we would like to have that opportunity to do so when it comes.
I think this is the opportunity.
Well,
No, I'm not meaning the next
Right.
session, but we're hoping to, I think we're hoping to hear, testimony not just today, but into next week, and then
sure.
not sit on it.
Okay. So just a couple of adjustments that we were talking about is when we have the 1,000 exemption, is we want to ensure that folks out there, the farmers out there, they're labeling product correctly. We don't at this point, and in the statutes, every product has to be labeled. Every product has to have it that has not been exempt, or it is exempt from inspection. But with the smaller people out there doing, less than 1,000, maybe they're only doing a few hundred. We've got people all over there doing quite a bit. We would like to have some kind of registration, probably, if I can say that, something so we know that they're out there. We want to be able to, if something should happen, if there's worries or if people complain or whatnot, because this happens. It doesn't matter if they're inspected, non-inspected. We get complaints. We get people that are unhappy with their product. So this is just a way for us to be able to go forward and be able to look at those and know who that plant or who that farmer is that we could probably go back to and have a conversation about. Yes, go ahead. I'm going to look at my notes.
Yeah, I just, looking for clarification as to whether that's not now. Whether that's not the case now, whether your agency is not, whether there are farms that are under this 1,000 bird exemption that are complying with laws, but that you're not aware of, or that they're.
That's exactly what it is. We're not aware of a lot of these smaller farms. We don't require them to send a label in for approval. They can, and we are very happy to look at that to make sure they are correct, but we don't enforce that. We do more when it goes up to the 5,000, or if someone should ever come up to a 20,000, which that is totally unheard of right now. I think the most I've ever seen anybody do is probably about 3,000 or 4,000 birds in a year. So, and when they do, yes, we do require labels to be submitted.
When they're in that between 1,000 and 5,000.
When they go over the 1,000 limit, yes, that's correct.
I think we had heard from Mike O'Grady, it sounded like that was not the case. It sounded like everybody who's doing any kind of on-farm slaughter that's under the 1,000 bird
Any size.
exemption, any size, that the agency has to be aware that they're doing that on site.
So unless they send in a label for us to look at, we are not aware of that. It is, with the 1,000 exemption, it's very limited to what they need. A lot of them are probably processing outside. It's a lot of them we just don't know. But when we get into a higher bracket, those are the ones that we actually will go to. We'll pick up a label. We'll see what kind of facility they have. And we have a couple that really have good facilities that meet the 20,000 exemption, but they're only going about 3,000 birds a year. Yeah. But that's why we would like that. We would like to have everybody be able to send in a label. Everybody let us know what they're doing and what is the number that you're going to do. We want them to be able to keep records. So if an inspector or somebody drives by, they want to stop by, they have those records to show that they are under that exemption. Okay.
Representative Lipsky.
Yes.
When we took testimony earlier on this bill, the point was made that you will always have a right, and producers should expect that you have the right to do a drop-in inspection, regardless of what category you are. Is that what you're implying? Is you need to know that there's a producer before it.
So
Put them on a schedule. But
we are not going to put them on a schedule. They can process those birds whenever they want to, when it's convenient for them. A lot of them have full-time jobs. They're not going to have operational hours like we expect for our, inspected facilities. They could work on weekends. We have two people over in Colchester and one over in Pine Island that they work on weekends because that's when people can get there. Yeah. So
you don't do for whole birds inspections on?
not very often. We don't have the manpower to do it. We do, if we see somebody that's doing something, it doesn't look quite right, we have a compliance team that might stop by and check it out. Yeah. But what I'm just trying to get at is we would like to know what exemption that they are using, because we do have the different requirements for sanitation per inspection. And I guess that's what I'm really trying to think of, I'm not sure if people really want to register. That might be a stickler for folks. But if they could just send in a label and just let us know, we're going to be under the 1,000 or we're going to be under the 5,000 exemption. Yeah.
And we are, many of us are new to this issue altogether, not in the business, and still trying to sort of get our heads around what current practice is, what's currently being done legally. And so when we talk about an exemption, again, and we went over this the other day, but it's an exemption from the inspection requirement.
Yes.
From a state or federal inspector coming in while you're slaughtering.
Right. So it's exemption from a bird-to-bird inspection. You're not going to have an inspector there to look at each bird. You're not going to have an inspector there look at the birds before, they go through slaughter. You're not going to look at them to see if there's any diseases, any broken wings, any bruises. That's not going to be there. So we would rely on the farmer to be able to consciously make sure that they take care of, any diseased birds they're going to get rid of, any bruises they're going to trim off. So, and we also expect them to, have a safe, bird that's going to be wholesome for the consumer. Because that's the bottom line. The farmers, we want them to grow, we want them to do what they can do, but we also want to make sure the consumer gets a good, safe product in the end.
And so that's the way the world works, or Vermont works right now. And what we're contemplating in this bill would be saying, okay, in addition to what is currently permitted, the farmer who meets the exemption requirements can also cut the bird into parts before selling it to a restaurant, a neighbor. Okay. Mike? No. John?
So just to give us some context, how many birds does Misty Knoll say?
Oh, geez. So in a day, I can tell you what they do in a day. Would that be helpful? And this is just going by memory because I don't go to Misty Knoll as much anymore. They do have a full-time federal inspector, and they're so far away from me that when the federal inspector is on vacation, we have somebody local that can go, one of our state employees that will go over there. But I want to say in a day, they could do about 5,000 chickens in a day, and then after do about 2,500 turkeys. Okay, have you been to their, it's huge. It is a big plant, and they've expanded so much. The last time I was there, I took a tour, and they have the whole back it's just amazing how much they have grown. So, and they do a great job. They really do, but they're probably like our biggest poultry producer. We do have a lot of smaller ones. Most of them are seasonal. Misty Knoll is not, and we also have one up in Isle Lamont, which is under our cooperative interstation program. That's sometimes a mouthful to say. And they are full-time year-round. Now, they're very small. So compared to Misty Knoll, they will do about 150
A day?
a day.
Is that Happy Bird?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they're very sweet. Yes. So it all depends. And then we have, I think we have Bruce Hennessy that's going to be on today testifying, and he can explain how many that he does. And he's also seasonal. So we only have 2 that go year round, but we have 7 total. We have 1 state, 1 cooperative interstate shipment program. We have 5 that are under federal inspection. Yeah. So there is quite a bit. Yes. And so with this bill, the way it is, so these are for growers, producers. So they would just grow their own produce, their own chickens, turkeys, and then slaughter those turkeys right on the farm, part them on the farm, depending on, whether it's going to be on the farm, it's going to be outside, or they're going to move into a smaller facility. And as I told you before, we do have a couple of folks out there that do have these small facilities that would meet the 20,000 requirements. And they actually slaughter under halal, which is great. That's a big asset. Okay, let's see. Go ahead.
One other question.
Sorry.
Can you explain how that's an asset? Because I don't know anything about halal slaughter. I'm just curious.
So we have a lot of folks that have moved to Vermont, and so and they are of the ethnic heritage, and so it just kind of produces some food from their heritage, from their homeland. So it's really important that they're able to go and be able to get this food. So it's not only chickens, it's also goats.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so the way it's set up now, if I can go into custom slaughter for just a second. So the way it's set up now is that the people that they actually go to these farms, they have the goats right there. So they're able to buy that goat live, and because they have a custom facility, they're able to do that service for them. And most of it is just, they want that whole entire goat.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Representative Superintendent.
I'm curious about what already exists in the exemptions and wondering what are the criteria that farmers and producers have to meet in order to be exempt, whether they're in the 1,000 or the 5,000 or the 20,000, is that they have to be in compliance with Title IX. And within Title IX, it specifically addresses the requirements for labeling and keeping all records. And so I think that that's already likely inherent within the structure of the bill itself.
Yes.
Yes.
And it should be. We want to make sure it is.
Yes. And for them to meet those exemptions, they would have to be doing that.
They would have to be doing
Yes.
that. And you're going by the USDA requirements. But, and then we are going to be, yes, and then we will be following those exemptions as well.
Correct.
Yep. Yes. Yep. No, I agree with that. I just worry that sometimes this doesn't happen. And so that's where my mindset is. And that's because I am in the regulatory side. That's where my brain works mostly. So these are just things that I just want to make sure that it is brought up again if this bill does go through. Okay. So thank you. Was there any other questions?
Don't see any other hands right now.
Okay. Let's see. So a lot of these, the poultry, the exempt poultry can go to restaurants. So we do need to speak with the Vermont Department of Health, Food and Lodging to see if there's any requirements that they need, because this poultry, it would actually be under their jurisdiction. They go to all the food restaurants, food service places. So that would be something that we would want to talk to them about. Or maybe you all would like to talk to them about. Let's see. I think you already discussed this, but defining what is going to be processed. And I think what I heard was it is actually going to be just the carcass cut up into smaller parts. So it'd be more like what we call ready to cook. Okay, so that was something that we had brought up.
So can you speak a little bit more to what possible concern would be there if that's not the understanding?
We're always worried that, so there are risks involved when we have this exempt poultry and they don't follow good sanitation requirements. And so we want to make sure that anything that they do is done under as much sanitary requirements that they possibly can do. And that also like includes having potable water. You know, if they're on a farm that has a well or a spring, are they testing their water? You know, we require that twice a year for inspected facilities. So we would like to make sure that, you know, these facilities are doing the same thing. Another one is simple hand washing, having outer clean clothing to use. If you're going to be slaughtering that bird and then they're all done, then you're doing a cleanup and then you're going to be processing the bird. Make sure you're changing your garments, hair restraints, non-porous, cutting boards. We see too much wood sometimes, and wood is like a sponge. It's going to take that bacteria, it's going to suck it in. And if it's not properly cleaned, it's going to stay there and it could cross-contaminate. It could, cause more risks for Salmonella and Campylobacter. And those are the two pathogens we want to think about when we're talking about poultry. So as we have it now with the whole birds, we don't worry about that because the whole birds are slaughtered and then they're packaged and they're sold whole. But now we're cutting them up. So there's more risks involved. So we just want to make sure that we have those details. We have our guidelines that we have now for people, our poultry exception guidelines, which is on our website. So we would have to look at that and, add language to that and add more consideration if this should go through. Okay.
If we're talking simply about cutting the chicken into 8 parts, as opposed to, just getting back to the question that, or the concern that you were raising a moment ago, is there, do you have a concern if there's something, if we're talking about something other than just parting the bird into 8 parts? And just so that the language in the bill actually ends up being clear that that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so that, just being able to cut up that chicken, we don't, or turkey or whatnot, whatever the poultry, it could be duck. We would rather not see it go into like further processing. Where it could be cooked, or it could be put into like a chicken pot pie, you know, things like that, that actually raises concerns, because then we're talking about a whole new realm of, you know, cooking, and is it getting up to temperature? Is it getting cooled down properly? You know, those are things that are in our inspection methods and how we think. So, and we have guidelines, we have cooking guidelines, cooling guidelines that need to be met for something like this. So we want to keep that out of the exemption, because that needs to really be under inspection. It needs to have, food safety has a plan that actually outlines how that is going to be produced.
Representative Rice.
Isn't the sort of cooking and preparation covered by a different regime of, couldn't someone, for instance, be raising and slaughtering and parting out 500 birds under the exemption and also have a cottage food license and be making pot pies?
Only for themselves. So when you're making product, and it's under the regulations, if you're making product and you're using uninspected poultry, you cannot use that and to be able to sell it to somebody else. It's just, you have to use inspected poultry product to be able to
Make a pot pie?
reprocess it and then sell it. Yes. Yeah. That's under federal, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Representative O'Brien.
This just came up in conversation, but where does something like chicken or turkey burger fall? It's not value added really, it's.
So it's a ground product. You would need a grinder, you would need to grind, yes, it would be a ground product.
But that can still be sold as a part of the bird?
We would rather not go that route. We would rather just stick to the parting of the bird.
Yep.
Yeah, because then again, you've got this grinder, and you're adding heat, and the temperature's going up. So so that's where more risks are involved if we go that way. I think the way you want it written now, I think the way just having the whole bird, having it cut up into parts, is a safe bet.
Representative Supernaut.
I did ask Michael Grady that question and follow up, and his answer was that he's reasonably sure that the sale of ground poultry, if nothing is added and something ground, is allowed under federal law.
Under federal law.
Under federal law.
Existing.
Existing.
So as standard.
Yes.
So you don't prefer that?
I would not prefer that. But we can talk about it.
But hypothetically, somebody could be doing that right now. Is that what?
Hypothetically, under USDA.
It's not addressed in state law at all.
No,
Well, it is by the whole bird language.
yeah, it's just right.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, right,
Right.
yeah,
We
okay.
just have the whole bird right now, so yeah.
But a whole, that seems, okay, it's an interesting,
Well, but we've already been over the fact that whole bird isn't actually defined.
isn't defined, right?
Wow.
Does whole bird include the giblets too?
It can,
Yeah.
Feet,
excuse me?
does it include the feet?
It can, it can.
That came up in there.
Well, I mean, this is not our purpose here, but I would argue that it can't under right now, we have, it says.
Right now it
selling
can't,
whole
right,
bird. So
right now
hopefully
it
doesn't
can't.
include
You
it.
are correct. Right now it cannot. Yes, it's just the whole carcass. Yes. Thank you. So those are basically what we had in mind. There may be a few other things that come up, but this is what our concerns and what we would propose.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you I mean, you certainly continue to have conversations, internally, and then if other things come up, we will be taking more testimony, and it's unusual for a bill not to have any changes in committee, so there may be changes. So I'm sure you'll be monitoring it and back in,
Sure.
or just submit something in writing too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really interesting again, it's new for us, so exploring some of those hypotheticals and inconsistencies maybe in existing federal law even. Anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I did mention, bottom line, we just want to make sure that the consumer gets a good, healthy product.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And as I said in the beginning, we welcome farmers to be able to increase sales and to increase their production. But bottom line, that consumer that's picking up that product from that farmer, they should get what they're buying. It should be healthy. It should be not contaminated, fully marked, labeled, and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And you're welcome to stay if you have time, but if you don't, you'll understand. Next, Caroline.
Hello, dear committee. For the record, it's Caroline Gordon, Legislative Director of Rural Vermont. I'm here to endorse H603. We're really excited for this piece of legislation. Think it will be a tremendous improvement to the marketability of poultry in the state of Vermont. And well, I want to keep my words relatively short for you because I'm excited that we have Em and Rose from Unionbrook here today, new board members at Rural Vermont, and direct stakeholders to this legislation. So I want to make sure we have enough time for them to speak. From my perspective, maybe also in part in response to what Julie just shared, it was really exciting for us. On-farm slaughter is like a legacy issue for rural Vermont. We've been working on the topic for many, many years, since founding in 1985 as a farmer-led organization, making use of what's federally called personal use exemption is part of what we call our food sovereignty campaigns. And so we've been over time always seeking to improve accessibility to local meat and poultry through that route. And yeah, we've got inspired for this change by what's called the Poultry Map that's put forward by the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. It's online, and they have kind of a state-by-state overview of what do states do in terms of on-farm poultry laws. And they reference the USDA guidance. So I looked at that again and noticed that just so many states just reference, defer to USDA on this question, and then discovering basically USDA allows for the sale of the parted bird, and then the question, why do we not do that in Vermont? And I'm super excited for the agency's support, of course, in terms of labeling standard. There is also an existing federal framework for that by the FDA, food labeling law, and also not abusing mislabeling laws or even protection from adulterated foods. Is all subject to that kind of federal standard. So it's not that there's not already a standard in place for labeling also the poultry products. If the agency desires to for farmers to provide a draft label, I'm sure I think the agency might even have like templates available for farmers to give their guidance on that too. I'm sure that might not be a big stepstone for us to agree to if that's desired. In terms of some of the specifics around how to incorporate on an on-farm scale the parting of the bird, we believe it's not too different from what's already happening in terms of the risks associated with that. I know Em and Rose might speak to that as well. And of course, there's already guidance in place for that too. So if the guidance needs to be updated to incorporate the parting of the bird, I think producers will be thankful to that. And that will also not be a big stepstone for this legislation, and maybe something that really doesn't have to live up to the level of legislation when it's something we can resolve in updating guidance that exists. So maybe that's just it for me, from me for now. And I'm open to any of your questions, and otherwise excited for Andrew's testimony.
Thank you, Caroline. Any questions for Caroline? All right. You must have done a terrific job, Caroline. And stay with us if you can. And in fact, would you like to introduce Em and Rose? You know them better than I do.
Yeah, sure. Bertie and Rose Thackeray are farmers that just this year joined Rural Vermont's board of the farm Union Brook Farm, poultry producer, livestock farm. And yeah, I'm sure you guys, I know a little bit what you're planning for us. So I know you're going to fill us in on what you're all about in terms of your operations. So I will keep it at that.
Okay, great. Well, both of you, and
inviting us here to testify today in support of H603. Is it possible for us to share the screen? We just have a couple of photos to try to give you guys a better understanding of our farm and what it is that we do here.
Yeah, we can send you.
Very good.
Yeah, all right.
I'm just gonna go. Oh. Shoot. That's wrong. I don't know. Can you guys see that?
No, we don't see it. No.
Oh, okay. Oh, I think it. Sorry. Sorry, we don't do this very often. Here's. Okay. Got it.
Now we're getting it.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you for bearing with us. And now let me go here. So yeah, we're gonna move out of the hypothetical realm and kind of talk for just a little bit about what it is that we do here at Union Brook Farm. So as mentioned, my name is Rose and this is my wife Em, and we own Union Brook Farm in Northfield. We bought our farm in 2019 and we're heading into our 5th summer of operation. Our farm was fallow for 15 years before we bought it, so we're building from the ground up. One of our major reasons for getting into poultry was because of the poultry exemption. We met in 2015 working at Maple Wind Farm when Rose was still a student at UVM, and we've been raising poultry together ever since. And so this is something that we've been doing for a long number of years to kind of get to where we are today. And so we were able to kind of know where we wanted our farm to go from the get. And so we were able to make major infrastructure investments kind of right off the bat. And those have been extensive. A major barrier to entry for farming is access to land and access to capital. We were really fortunate in the timing of the purchase of our farm. And so we were able to get land, and we're actually only farming on about 5 acres. And so we're really like micro farming. And so we're able to do a lot on a little via the poultry program. And the potential of this bill for us to expand our operations while not raising any more birds than we're currently raising would be very impactful to our business. And we currently raise around 2,000 broilers a year. Yeah, and with this slide, we just wanted to give you a little insight into how we raise them here. So you can see in the upper left is our brooder coop, where the birds start at the day they hatch to about 3.5 weeks. And then they all move outside into our mobile range coops where they're pulled every day with the tractor to fresh grass. So these are kind of just setting up our values for raising poultry. So also, like Emily said, barrier to entry is definitely investment levels when starting from scratch. And when it comes to raising the livestock and processing them yourself, it is kind of literally a what came first, chicken or the egg situation. And so we have been investing heavily into the systems that the birds start at because we want healthy birds, and that's something we're really proud of. Our mortality rate is about 6%, where the industry standard is about 10. And so also at the same time, we were trying to invest in our processing facility because processing on farm is another value of ours. Like Emily said, we met at Maple Wind. The responsibility of both raising a healthy, happy animal on pasture and seeing it through the finish line to be a safe, nutritious product is like a responsibility that we take really seriously. And the trucking of birds would be another huge investment requiring a trailer, transport crates, a truck, and paying a facility where there aren't really options right now to do that. And that would just eat into our bottom line. So doing them on farm, we see as all benefit, very little con to operating under poultry exemption. So here we have our scalder, our plucker, many stainless steel tables. And that's going to bring us to our biggest investment yet for our poultry processing facility. We actually accessed a pasture surface water grant through the Agency of Ag this summer, which was hugely helpful in putting down a concrete pad for our entire processing facility. Where the truck is now is now a walk-in cooler freezer unit. And so the grant helped us invest in that 1,000-gallon septic tank and pump system so that we can spread the wastewater from processing days on our fields, which increases our resiliency in times of drought and just overall fertility of our fields. So that was a huge support. And also, I just want to say that when Julie was saying that folks are processing outside, I would put us in that category. But that doesn't mean that we don't prioritize sanitation and making sure that the birds are cooled as fast as possible, that all of our surfaces are sanitized at the beginning. And, you know, anytime that there's a gap in anything, we're always sanitizing our surfaces. And we train our folks who help us with slaughter to make sure that, you know, we would rather you move slow and clean than fast and sloppy. And so that's something that we've been prioritizing from the get-go. And a lot of the suggestions that Julie had, I completely agree with. Yeah, and I think that's another reason why we like doing it ourselves too. I do feel like that's something that we would rather have control over personally. And I think another thing I'll just say is that, you know, we really feel like the success of the quick success of our farm business is because of legislative work that rural Vermont and others did to get this exemption in place. And so we're really excited to be a part of this conversation of bringing it to the next level, because we really feel like it'll bring our farm business to that next place we want to get to. So our last slide is just a look at our product. We've currently done over 5,000 birds under exemption over the course of 4 years. We obviously sell to farmers market and restaurant caterer partners that we have. I quickly just wanted to do some potential earning income from the ability to do this, because we aren't going to really change our scale. We are limited by our land base and our potential quality of life, work-life balance. And so just looking at, you know, doing half of what we're doing right now, which would be about 1,000 birds, as parted birds, could potentially be a net increase of about $13,000 for us. And that's low end. You know, I do think that there is a market. Montpelier Farmers Market just lost a parted poultry producer. So I really feel like customers are seeking a lot of times parts and not a whole bird. And so we often lose sales. at market for that reason. So I think high end, we could work towards parting most of the birds we're producing. And that could be life changing for us and be a potential net increase of about $50,000 in profit on just this one enterprise that we do. So I think the ripple effect of that would mean that farmers can better plan for families and future, and communities can access products that they are already seeking and they already are buying from us and feel good about. And so, yeah, I guess in short, we're grateful to share our story here today. And we look forward to being a part of this conversation and seeing where it ends up. I guess I'll also just quickly say that I'm super on board with all the guidance that Julie suggested, and I think it's super rational and reasonable. Our label is obviously already registered through the state, and we would be, taking those time temp logs and also wanting to ensure a safe product for the customer. So thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for sharing the pictures too. I think that really was helpful, giving us a sense of what your farm looks like. Representative Levitt has a question.
Can you go back to the finances for a second? You were
Sure.
saying 13,000 a year more in income if you could do the birds as parts rather than whole?
Yeah, and that's net.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would
Oh.
yeah, it would really, so basically what I'm looking at, total pounds produced this year of chicken was about 8,800 pounds, so 8,800 pounds. So I was first looking at a scenario where we were parting about half of that.
Okay.
So, you're gonna look at a total loss of about 30% when you are breaking down birds. But we would be trying to sell as much as possible, but chicken backs are just not as popular as chicken thighs or breasts, understandably. So then I was using an average price per pound at about $11 because there will be some products that are high-end breasts, $16 a pound. There will be low-end product chicken hearts at, maybe $5. So I used an average to get that number. So that total potential earning is about $57,000. This year we did about 44. So that's where I'm getting that net gain. And so, year 3, we have invested all profit from the chicken enterprise every single year. You saw a few different, very expensive projects we've undertaken at this point. And so it has always been a goal for us to get to parted birds. I worked under inspection for 2 years, and know most of the state inspectors that way, and they've been a great resource for us to contact at multiple points throughout the way. Actually, Julie is who connected me to the pasture surface water grant, and I wouldn't have known about that otherwise. So sorry, you had a short question and I rambled. But.
No, that's great. It's a good answer. Thank you.
Any other questions here? Okay. Well, thanks again. I mean, that was great to hear. Helpful for us, I think, to hear your math example, the dollars and cents. Just a little bit of insight that when you part the bird, you're not going to have as much weight afterwards that you can sell is interesting to be aware of. Makes perfect sense. And good to hear that you were able to take advantage of the grant.
Thank you.
Added bonus. All right. Do we have another witness on?
Chris was invited, but he's never got back.
Okay, all right. So I think we're done with our testimony on this topic for today anyway, and we'll, I know that we may want to hear more from the agency at some point. We may ask another farmer to come in if the committee feels that there would be any benefit from having another perspective. Maybe others who would like to come forward, and we'll do that. But I think that we'll try at this point to see whether next week we can wrap up this bill. So we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carol.
All right. Ready?